More on the importance of protecting wildlife. I'm joined live via Skype by Dan Ashe, the President and CEO of the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Rachelle. It's good to be back with you.
So, World Wildlife Day. Their theme this year, Forest and Livelihoods, Sustaining People and Planet. Why do you think it's so important to make that connection, especially right now?
Because the people are animals, and so when we think about the global ecosystem, we are dependent upon the same ecological systems as animals are. So I think on World Wildlife Day, it's important to think of ourselves not as distant from animals, but as connected to animals, and really think about our relationship to nature as a whole.
And that's an important perspective to take. And we know that according to the United Nations, between 200 and 350 million people live within or adjacent to forested areas. What trends are you seeing when it comes to forest populations and the ecosystem around them?
Well, of course, across the globe, we see wildlife populations in crisis. And the UN's recent report indicated that up to 1 million species are in danger of extinction here. In the United States, more than 2,000 species are listed under our Endangered Species Act. Globally, the International Union for Conservation of Nature lists more than 35,000 species on its red list of threatened species. So across the globe, land conversion, pollution, overfishing, deforestation, wildlife trade and trafficking are having devastating effects on natural populations of animals. And so we are seeing, in fact, an extinction crisis that needs our attention. And it all comes back to people and our consumption habits, our use of energy, our food consumption habits, so people can make a difference.
And so for people in their communities thinking, look, this just sounds like too big of an issue for me to make a difference, what would you tell them?
Well, I think we have to think of our lives in the context of sustainability and the choices that we make every day. We make hundreds of choices every day about what we eat, what we wear, what we drive, how we heat our homes, what kind of homes we live in. And so I think what people need to be aware of is that our choices, individually and collectively, make a difference. And that we all need to be a part of solving these complex problems like climate change. And we need to ask our governments to be responsible in dealing with these big challenges like climate change and like trade, which is driving many species toward extinction, the illegal and, quite frankly, the legal trade in animals that needs to be better regulated.
So to that point then, with the ongoing attention on both, as you mentioned, legal and illegal wildlife trade, how has the value of those markets been affected?
Well, of course, the markets are very lucrative, and we all know the stories of elephants and ivory, and we know the stories of rhinoceros and rhinoceros horns, and of course, those products are extraordinarily valuable, more valuable than gold. And we are maybe less familiar with the stories about the trade in shark fins, or the trade in pangolin scales. The pangolin is most people don't even know what a pangolin is, but it's probably the most trafficked mammal in the world, trafficked for its meat and trafficked for its scales, which are used in traditional medicines. And so again, consumers worldwide need to be aware of the impact they're having on wild animals, but also the opportunity that they have to save animals, because at our hearts, I think all peoples, all cultures are concerned about animals and compassionate about animals. And I think awareness is a key, and that's why the Association of Zoos and Aquariums has initiated a Wildlife Trafficking Alliance, which is a partnership of more than 80 companies, nonprofit organizations, and zoos and aquariums for the purpose of raising awareness. And helping to drive down and close markets in live wild animals.
Now, obviously, if this is illegal or legal wildlife trade, this is involving multiple countries. Are you seeing any sort of consistency when it comes to an increase in global regulations on this?
We are, and in fact, the World Wildlife Day, March 3, is on the day, March 3, 1973, when the Convention on International Trade in Endangered species was signed here in Washington, D.C. And today that treaty has more than 180 nations as signatories. It's a binding treaty to regulate the trade in endangered and threatened species. I think we need new international instruments. As we've learned recently, painfully, with the COVID pandemic, we need to be worried about trade in animals that can raise the risk of zoonotic disease transmission. And so we need new and better instruments at the international level to deal with trade, especially in live animals and especially live wild animals for food.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us. Dan Ashe there, the President and CEO of the Association of Zoos and Aquariums.
Thank you.